Hello, and welcome to a Bon Mott's production of
MOTSterpiece Theatre,
where we review critically acclaimed cinema spanning the breadth of human filmmaking.
MOTSterpiece Theatre,
Spoilers, mature content, inappropriate language. Join us.
MOTSterpiece Theatre. MOTSterpiece Theatre.
Just when you thought it was safe to start listening to podcasts again, The Lost Signals presents MOTSterpiece Theatre, and number 56 on the AFI Top 100, Jaws.
Boom, boom.
My name is Jonathan Ian Manser, and you better not compare me to the mayor from Jaws. Here with Quint,
Don't you, Chief?
or Scott Thurlow, also with Hooper,
Science things?
and Stephen Ormosi, and Chief Brody himself,
We're going to need a bigger bottle of whiskey.
Chris Morgan. So, as you said, we're doing a review of Jaws in honor of the summer and the beautiful beaches of New Jersey, which I believe the initial shark attack happened.
Right.
Oh, the one in 1916 or whatever.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, I'm going to give the funny log line of sorts in like Quint, and
You know it.
We'll move on to Steve-O with the synopsis.
All right, so this movie moves very fast in the beginning. There are a bunch of shark attacks. A lot of people and children die. And then it kind of moves on into the shark hunting phase where Hooper, Quint, and Brody go onto the boat and hunt down the shark that has been just
Terrorizing.
murdering townspeople. And they spend a lot of time on the boat kind of having a great time when nothing's happening,
Well, they're bonding with each other.
and having a terrible time when things are happening. And then they kill the shark. And that's pretty much the entire story that happens.
He fixes the cable and they kill the shark.
Yeah.
So, continue talking, Steve-O, with the introduction.
I would love to, Ian. Thank you.
Yes, please.
So the intro to this movie is very short, but effective, I think. There are a bunch of teenagers having a party around a campfire. There's a guy playing guitar. The standard teenager shit. And
The standard 30-year-old teenager.
yeah,
shit.
he's probably playing Dave Matthews or something. Like that.
Sure.
Like the
in 1975.
like the standard
But
guitar
anyway.
douchebag plays, or some equivalent thing. A girl and a boy decide to wander off towards the ocean. The guy passes out drunk right at the shoreline because I don't know.
That's just what you do.
He was exhausted from his exertion.
He was so tired from running there.
Screaming, I'm coming the whole way.
Yeah, and affirming that he could run several times. I can run. The girl makes it into the ocean and then gets dragged around for a while by a shark, and then she dies, and that's the entire intro, I would say.
Yeah,
pretty effective as far as just setting up a lot of the stuff that happens throughout the movie, and also being kind of terrifying, especially for audiences at the time. I believe
One would think.
that. Well, I think this movie set off a bunch of
It did.
shark murdering
It did, in fact.
up and down the East Coast. So, but yeah, I mean that's kind of the intro.
No, I mean, you're right. Like, it jumps you right in. I don't know who has not seen Jaws, but if you haven't, it starts off basically like a horror movie, almost like a slasher movie, with the shark being the slasher, and that's his first kill. And like you said, Steve-O, now you know what you're in for.
Yeah.
A shark is going to be fucking shit up until they take care of it. But I like you said, I think it's very effective. I think it still stands. It's, famous for a reason. It's on the A5 list for a reason. And I think it still holds up. even though we know like the entire plot, we're all very big Jaws fans just in general. But having this fresh watch through, still solid. Still is a good setup. It's getting a 1 from me.
So Jaws is based quite a bit. Or the whole. It's all about building tension. It's about
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's about like not knowing when the shark is going to strike, but to do that, they have to establish the threat of the shark right off the bat.
Mhm.
Just like that's why you often see a brutal murder at the beginning of horror movies in order to establish the threat of the monster of sorts. And I think it's not the best scene in the world. It's very actually kind of, I feel, traditional, what would be in the 80s slasher films, that kind of opening.
Right.
Very much so. I was actually going to say that.
But because of Jaws, I would counter.
Partly, but I'm saying that even though it's kind of, if you look at it as cliche now, it still is effective for what the job intended to do.
It does exactly what it needs to do. It does its job, yes.
As I said, precast, what I liked about the beginning is also, while they're showing all this, they and I know this will go to style, but I'll probably forget about it by the time I get there, is the fact that he also establishes, because they had to work around a shark that wasn't working in production, they kind of establish right off the bat how they're going to present the shark through the film. Like how the shark's going to see his victim.
You don't see it at all. You just see her basically get struggling in the water, get dragged under.
And you see the camera along the bottom. So I thought it was really great in establishing things within the narrative and from without the narrative. And as somebody who was 5 years old when this came out and saw it in the theater,
when you were 5?
Yeah, my parents took me to see Jaws and Blazing Saddles. I was a fucked up little kid.
Your parents were really trying to screw you up, man.
They did a good job.
Wait till we get to Blazing Saddles. I got a story to tell you.
Anyways.
No, so it was just really neat that you guys are watching it after the fact, and as I'm growing up, when you're a kid, you don't realize how much this movie at the time, two things in this movie scared me, and I'll get to that later, but it's so amazing. Even for me who went to see that, and then when I was 9 years old, my parents took me to see Alien. So you could see from Jaws to Alien to everything that came out, that how much this movie set the stage. This movie and Psycho did more for the horror thriller monster movie than probably anything the modern day.
That's a really good point.
I can see that, yeah.
I agree, and that's why it's on the AFI.
Yeah, so one's all around.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 1 as well.
Still effective. Still works.
Very short, but effective. Yeah.
So Scott, onto the body.
All right, so this one's not difficult, but so what happens after the initial shark attack? They find what remains of the initial woman who was eaten, more or less. And so Brody is introduced. He's the sheriff or the chief of their little island, like a resort town, and he's trying to figure out, trace it back to figure out the murder. He has a bumbling sidekick. It's sort of set up this is his life. Set up his wife and his kids and all that. It's 4th of July weekend, so the mayor in town is very concerned because tourism is a big deal. So there's a lot of intersquabbling, political, small town bullshit. Whether it should close the beach, all that.
Right.
They decide to call out for a specialist, the oceanographer. Hooper's character, played by Richard Dreyfuss, he shows up. He sort of brings his expert analysis and says, "Yeah, you have a big problem here, based on what I know." The town goes into a frenzy, if you will, no pun intended per se. But then the next day, or a day or two after the original murder, another child is eaten by a shark, and everyone witnesses essentially on the beach. So again, people getting fearful. The mayor is trying to sort of calm everyone down, and also he wants the beaches to be open because it's going to be tourism season. So he's butting heads with Brody. Hooper comes in and just tells him, again, imparts his knowledge, information that they catch a shark as well in the initial rush.
Tiger shark.
Yep. And again, Hooper's analysis is not the right shark. So again, things are getting worse. But Chris, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
So eventually what they decide to do is find the most badass hardened fisherman in town, Quint, and take him out. Basically Brody commandeers his ship, and they put together an expedition to go out hunting. So most of the body is basically them. I would say the second they leave Quint's little shop, once they're sort of forced to work together, they're hunting on the ocean. And they're sort of standoffish with each other at first. Quint doesn't like the young little you little rich boy Hooper. But they eventually all bond together and they start getting menaced by the shark more and more. It seems it's, again, the most indefeatable man kind of thing, like implacable man keeps coming at them, whatever they throw at it. Even Quint's hardened shark knowledge does not help them all that much, and even he's like taken aback. So it's basically them on the water for a lot of it. Again, conversations, bonding, and tracking down the killer shark. So the thing is, as I said, I'm a big fan of Jaws. I love it. Yes, it's a great movie, and it's on the AFI list for a reason. Just that some of the body seems they could cut some of it away, I think. And I know that's a kind of a controversial thing to say, maybe, but to me, if I'm going to give a 0 to anything in this movie, this is the question I'm going to give it a 0 to in our scale, because I think it's difficult. So let me finish, and you guys can clearly you want to say something. Just that I always felt that some of it could have been cut away. Not much, just some. I think the body perhaps is the weakest part compared to the other things, and everything else that is good to great indeed about Jaws. So that's where I stand. You guys can go ahead.
Ian, you want to take this?
I don't know. All three of us raised our pennies at the same
I know.
point.
Well, I have a rebuttal, but
No, I have a rebuttal too, but you go first.
Someone
well,
rebut
here's what I'll
first.
say. Depending on where you cut the body, I may agree with you.
Mhm.
If you cut the body when they're out on the water, when they have their drunken reverie moment, and
Sure.
he does the
famous speech.
Guys like
Sure.
doll's eyes speech. If that's where you cut the body, I don't think I can give the body a 0. If you cut it before they ever go out, like when they go out, from the time that they go out
Yeah.
on the water is when you say that the conclusion starts, then I could see an argument for giving
That's
the
all
body
I'm
a
saying.
0.
That's pretty much what I'm arguing for here.
It's not bad. And I don't even think it really drags so much very often, but there are parts of it that I don't care about as much. I guess.
That's all I'm saying.
Because I was going to say, I hadn't seen the movie in its entirety in a long time, and it surprised me how quickly the Kittner kid was killed, and like all that stuff you guys are talking about was much like, because we were talking about precast about maybe there were some pacing problems, but to me, I felt that I like the slice of life stuff. I like the day-to-day stuff. And something occurred to me before that the naysayer Mara, who's doing everything for money and everything, I don't know if that was like the first, that was definitely an archetype of some sort.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if it was this movie that brought it into popularity, but in the 80s, you see a lot of that archetype, like the selfish politician.
Certainly, if you codify it, then it sort of made it popular.
But what I'm going to say was,
That's all.
to me, that, especially looking back on it now that he is like basically an archetype, is that
Sure.
he was the weakest element in that. But I mean, I thought he did a really good job with pacing. I mean, this is just my rebuttal. And I thought that,
You don't have to qualify it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I'm not saying it's paced badly. It's just a little.
no,
again,
it just actually, no, my whole point is like based on what we were talking about precast, because we were talking about this, that to me, it was, I thought it was just enough considering that the last, as soon as they hit the water, the three of them, there's nobody else. There's never on the island. You don't see
Sure.
Brody's
Yeah,
wife,
you're
nothing
right.
again. So, I thought it was, I mean, personally, I thought it was great world building.
Yes, and what's fascinating to me is the politics that play out on the island when they're faced with a shark. You have the mayor, who you had mentioned, who is desperate, and he doesn't want to believe that there's a problem. He can't believe there's a problem because
if he
in
admits
the
it,
book
then
it's
yeah.
differently, but it's
Sure.
different. His motivations are different. But in this one, he's in a way like, I need to protect my community. Yeah, he's a bumbling idiot in retrospect,
Yeah.
but from his point of view, like, look, people are gonna like this is where we make our money from summer tourism. So his entire motivations are completely believable, even though again,
He's
knowing
the
as
shrewdest of guys.
yeah,
Sure,
the
sure.
audience knowing that there is actually a shark and how much of a danger it is, especially upon repeat viewings.
Mhm.
Like, you look at the man as being more indefensible than I think he actually is. But I also like the fact that the mother of one of the Kittner kid, as you pointed out, puts up a bounty, and the idea is that it's someone seeing that the police and the bureaucracy which she's come to rely on, isn't solving this
Failing,
problem.
yeah.
So she's going to put up a bounty, and
Yeah.
mercenaries are coming in. Fishing mercenaries, so they're less threatening, but mercenaries nonetheless.
You're right. You're right.
and the thing is
Overloading
that-
boat mercenaries.
Yes.
Jerks.
Exactly, a bunch of fools going out and getting eaten by sharks. But nonetheless, for a horror movie, they do the pacing very well. For all the slow moments of tension when Brody's on the beach and just looking out at, and you're seeing potential victim number 1, potential victim number 2,
Yeah.
and you're going slowly and surely through, like, it's very methodical. And I think, again, I was also surprised about how quick a lot of the intro scenes went by. I remember them being longer than they actually
More stretched
were.
out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
because it's so funny how all of a sudden it seems like a week passes by, you know, from when Christy, whatever her name was, killed the first victim. And all of a sudden it's just like they jump to the shark. They jump to the fact that it's a shark a lot quicker than I remembered them doing. It's just, it's kind of like, I kind of felt like in a way they overreacted, but because I know how the movie is and knowing now, like, you know, the suspension of disbelief you have to get just to contain the spacing that, you know, the time flashes and so forth. It doesn't come until retrospect that you think that they kind of, you know, you don't really get the passage of time, but it ultimately works because of that.
And I would like to say those time flashes are not really noticeable. And the more I'm thinking about this movie again now, and with a reviewer's take on it, I guess, the more I realize how almost
Seamless it is. Yeah.
almost perfectly that it is paced. Pardon me, I just spit a little bit. How almost perfectly it's paced. And I also wanted to add, while we're still in the body section of this, does anybody have any wine that I could put into this whiskey?
No, but we did decide while watching it that we're going to do that for some future episode.
No, we're not.
2 points. Oh, yes, we are.
I when I was 21, I did the wine and whiskey thing. Never again.
So,
Ian, you can do it.
yeah, in honors Jaws. So 2 things. One is that a lot of the slower, like family building moments, they actually add some weird humor in there, like the wine and whiskey thing, which I had forgotten about until you brought it back up. But another aspect, so to agree with you on one part, the only scene that I felt was superfluous was when the 2 guys were throwing the roast out on the
That's
dock.
like the bait, the chum.
That was, to me, the only scene that perhaps could have been cut.
Yeah.
I agree with
All right,
you
know
there.
what? You guys convinced me. It was going to be a soft 0. I was going to give it, but I think for everything you said, I think I've been swayed pretty convincingly that I'm going to give it a soft 1 or maybe a solid 1. But you're right. Like I'm all I'm saying is like my original like gut feeling has always been something like that about it, but the way you break it down, I think you're right. I think I'll agree. I think I'll actually end up giving it a 1.
I think you're right. I was teetering on a 1 or a 0, but I'm going to be solidly in the 1 space for this one, I think.
Chris?
There you go.
Oh, I'm giving it a 1 without
Can
question.
we, by the way, can we make a t-shirt that says in the 1 space?
We will later on.
All right, so
Available
Chris,
soon.
on to you with conclusion.
Okay, the conclusion. So after Quint tells the story of the Indianapolis and the shark starts banging in their boat, and
What? I've missed that part of the movie.
that's what stops them from singing because they're singing "Show Me the Way to Go Home," and all of a sudden
I don't remember the shark banging in their boat.
It's like ramming it.
banging into it. You
know what you meant. I'm making a joke, you
Well, that was a
jerks.
terrible joke
Well,
because I
yeah,
thought you were
thank you.
actually
Ian got it. This guy gets it.
wasn't that good.
guy
You're the mayor of Jaws from jokes.
this guy knows what I'm talking about.
Anyway, go ahead, Chris.
No, so they I think they put another barrel on it, and then it goes away. And the
Fire
next
another
the
barrel
next
in?
day, they're like repairing the boat because some water got into it, and thus begins essentially the final battle with the shark. They try to reel it in, and it basically breaks the cleats off the boat, and they put another barrel into it, and so they got 3 barrels, and the shark is chasing them, and Quint's like, we're going back to shore, we're gonna drown it, and he's just like, the part of me at that moment in time is wondering if Quint didn't have a death wish, or if he was just
Quint obviously had a death wish.
Quinn had it,
Always.
it was obvious from the moment that he
Yes.
but the thing
bashed
is,
the shit out of the radio with the bat
Yeah,
for
but-
no reason.
and he comes out and he gives Brody and Hooper a life vest because he said he's never going to put a life vest on again. No, but I thought it was interesting because it's just like they established, who he was. So when he's trying to get the shark to follow him into the shallows, he knows he's running the engine in the red, and it's just kind of like there's kind of a little whiff of PTSD on there. It's
Sure.
but
he looks kind of like Satan with like this crazy grin on his face, like just driving the boat like as hard as he can.
Death wish
There's
face,
black
like you
smoke,
said.
Yeah.
just blasting out of the
it was kind of like
boat.
he's like, I'm going to kill this fucking thing, and we're going to do it right now. And what happens is he burns out the engine, and they're afloat, and the shark attacks and damages the boat, and basically they set Hooper up in the shark cage to go in the water, and we see what was set up before as the Chekhov's air tank, which I didn't notice before, but every time when Hooper's getting ready, they made a point to keep showing that the air tank was on the table.
I've always noticed that about John.
I never realized how much they hung on that. And Hooper goes in the water, shark in the water. Shark attacks him. Hooper gets out and swims away. Shark attacks the boat. Quint gets eaten.
Quint's in the boat.
Quint's in the boat.
Quint's in shark's mouth.
The shark breaks in. The boat's sinking. The shark breaks into the side. Brody shoves the Chekhov's the air tank into the shark. Shark comes back. He shoots the shark. Shark blows up, and then they
Credits.
And then then Hooper and smile
And
you son of a bitch
They
then
bravely swam away.
And Hooper,
They really came back to shore.
That's right. You need like Sir Robin's minstrels. They swam away, So they take the barrels and they swim back into shore, and that's the end of the movie and roll credits. And it was a fucking, I'm giving it a 1. And
then
we can discuss
Chris
why.
applauded. It was amazing.
I was.
It was odd, but no, I mean, of course you're right. Like the most famous parts, like if not all of them, many of them are in the entire hunting down scene.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to add. It still stands. It's still like as good as it ever has been.
Quint
And-
goes full Captain Ahab.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But he doesn't become a caricature.
No,
Sure. I mean, it just
And the Indianapolis story was really great because, like I did, he may have had a death wish or whatever. He may have been obsessed, but it came from you got the perspective of it. It wasn't just he was out for
you get
revenge.
his, as you would say, you get his pathos, Chris, and it's perfectly it's laid out for you, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm giving it a 1.
Yeah, it's a very famous ending sequence.
It is.
For a reason.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give it a strong 1.
I think
for
it
that.
still stands, like I said, and
I'm going to give it a strong
Definitely give it
1
a
as well. I just want to give one more mention to the scene, which is one of the best scenes I think ever filmed, where they're all getting drunk in the boat, and they're all like Richard Dreyfuss.
well, I was saving that for dialogue.
or
But
Hooper and Quint are like trading scars or whatever, and then Quint tells his whole story, which we can talk about further in dialogue for sure. But he tells his whole story of like going on the boat and sharks picking off people that he knew one by one,
which is a true story, by the way. That actually happened to me in
And
Indianapolis.
It's fucking wild, and it's just so well. It's not only is it well acted, which it's incredibly well acted, but it's also well shot. Like, it's just everything about that scene comes together perfectly. I think.
And
For sure.
What's beautiful about that scene is this is a tense section of the film, and they have a really good levity and bonding scene.
Yeah.
You're actually really, I think, as emotionally attached to these characters as you get at this point.
It's the first time they actually become
then-
friends, because they
yeah.
were standoffish, like I said, at first. And
Yeah.
So you're laughing along with them as they're showing off their scars, and then it turns really heavy,
and
really quickly.
intense.
So, again, it's one of the great dialogue scenes in
Yeah.
In filmatic history, I would say.
so-
For sure.
If that alone will give
Exactly. I
what
think the
movie?
funny thing is, like, so just as a quick sort of add on to that, while we were watching it, we were making comments and like sort of doing MST. Like when that scene happened, like everyone just like got silent very quickly and like was riveted when the scar and exchange scene and the Indianapolis speech was happening. And I think that is testament as to why it still stands.
Yeah.
It's so good.
My grandpa was a merchant marine in World War II in the Pacific, and he was in convoys where other ships were sank behind him.
Sure.
So it's really funny to kind of hear him at the dinner table tell those stories, and then knowing I come from a family who are like history buffs. I don't know how I skipped that generation, but I knew a lot about World War II, and I knew the Indianapolis story and all this stuff. So when you hear Robert Shaw say this, and yeah, we're going to get to this in dialogue. There's a reason that everybody shuts up, because even for me, who actually heard stories not like this, but in that tone,
Sure.
where my grandpa would say, like, would tell us stories of the war. It was just, to me, it's just, it's that, to me, that scene always gives me chills.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I guess it still stands, and that's why it's getting a 1 from me.
Yep. 1.
One all around?
Yeah.
So, Chris, this is unprofessional of me, but I skipped you. I gave you the conclusion by accident on the rotation.
I just went
So
with
if you
it.
want to do themes, you're welcome to take the place, or I can do them if you want.
I could do themes, because this is one that I'm basically going to throw right back at you, because because there is the whole man versus nature thing. But because it is really the themes and antagonists are going to be the most difficult for me, because to me it really is such more of a character study than I had imagined going into it. Like, because I hadn't seen the movie in whole. For some reason, every time I turn on the TV, and I've been watching it the last couple of years, it always comes up right before the dinner scene. So, as Scott pointed out, like, everything stops in my house when that scene comes on.
The dinner scene or the
dinner scene, because the Indianapolis speech is coming, and basically
the drunk scene.
the drunk scene.
Well, I think of the dinner scene as with the family when he brings over the wine.
Scotch and wine scene. Anyways.
Oh yeah, the Scotch and wine scene.
I'm sorry,
given that
doesn't matter.
No, but I'm talking about the scene on the boat before the Indianapolis scene.
Yep.
So, but it's such a character piece, because everybody's like dealing with their own demons. Like, Brody's dealing with the fact that he's afraid of water, that he wanted to go someplace to make a difference. He didn't want to get out of Manhattan. And now all of a sudden he's like literally out of his depth.
And it really comes across that like he feels kind of inadequate compared to these two.
Yeah.
Like he's just like watching them from afar.
And you got Hooper and you got Quint, who are two different kinds of the spectrum. When Quint's like, oh, you counting money your whole life. These are, city hands. And he's like, don't give me this working class hero crap. And it's just like, in a way, Hooper's got something to prove. And then you find out
they bond over their injuries. Like that's a great part of that scene.
But they both know the seed. They both know what they're doing. And then you have Quint, who we find out later, like the whole thing with the Indianapolis, why he is as cavalier as he is. All of a sudden, there's the man versus nature, if you want, and all the analogies you can draw to Moby Dick or whatever. But I found the themes be more within the conflicts of the characters, and I'm, probably mixing into a antagonist, so I'll stop there. But I found it thematically much more complex, and
I'm going to back you up with this.
Okay, please do.
So there's a man named William Lebeau, who's the father of sociolinguistics, or one of the fathers of it. And he's very famous for what a Martha's Vineyard dialect study, where he was doing the people who are the city folk who would come there to vacation during the summer, and the locals who were fishermen and all of that. And basically, he's a linguist, so he's focused on dialect, but there's a lot about the conflict between the fishermen, like the locals, and and that Hooper and Quint really demonstrate a conflict that you wouldn't necessarily know of if you weren't familiar with that area. And this was shot on, I believe, Martha's Vineyard.
Yes, yes, it was.
Like, it's home, and I think it's really interesting to watch Hooper and Quint go at it, not just on the idea of the working man versus the educated man, like the wealthier individual versus the poor individual, but like there's that whole, their entire culture is conflicting in this, while Brody, as you mentioned, is kind of a passive state. He doesn't have
exactly. Yeah.
He's not the leader that was necessary for the situation.
It's and that I think is a really interesting theme in and of itself. Like when he goes out on this, when he goes out on the boat, he is literally the third best person on that boat to be there, right?
He's the least qualified.
He's the chief of police. He's supposed to be in charge, and he never is in this entire movie. Even when he's on dry land, where he's supposed to be in charge of like law and order in the town, he gets overruled by the mayor constantly, and the mayor just like kind of puts him down because it's his first year there. He doesn't want to like make any waves, and that's I kind of just thought of that, but like that's a really interesting thing having to do with the themes there.
Yeah.
No, you guys are all right. I agree with all that. I was going to say, tying into themes, and as Chris said, bleeding over into antagonist. Sharks are bad. Sharks are evil.
Sharks are scary.
Yeah.
No.
Sharks are terrifying.
Let's
You're right.
not perpetuate that.
But you see, exactly. Like
Yeah,
I was going
let's
to bring
not
that up.
perpetuate that.
There we go.
The myth of all that. But I mean, I don't have much more to say because I agree with all that. I think it's all sort of very well intertwined.
Yeah.
Like all those things. Each of them probably individually could be a good theme, and the movie does a good job of marrying them, or like not even marrying, just like having them all, have a highlight, and all the characters reflect all those things as well. So yeah, I'm going to give themes a pretty strong 1 because it does a very seamless job of exploring that.
I am going to give themes a 1, but I also want to mention quickly there are 2 things that I thought of when I was watching this movie. Right, the first is that we've already mentioned Moby Dick. The second one that I think was had a strong connection was Old Man in the Sea.
Okay.
I kind of idea of like going out and like dragging the shark back and like dragging him back into land and like all that stuff. I thought it really tied into that, and I don't know if I have something deeper to say about it right now, but I think that there's something to be said for that connection, right? Like I would be willing to bet if you go online right now and you look up Jaws, Old Man in the Sea, you'll find a lot of stuff about that. People that have much more eloquently than me spoken to the connection between those 2 things.
Do it.
So,
Now.
That's an just an interesting like thematic connection that I kind of thought about and I wanted to mention.
Perhaps the shark is the old man in this situation.
The shark is dragging them back into shore.
About that, but either way, no. I mean, that's if not a funny point, but I think a valid one, and I think it stands. So even more evidence to probably give this a 1.
Okay,
right.
We're on to antagonists with Mr. Amosi.
Oh, antagonists. So I guess the shark is the antagonist, like the obvious antagonist in this, right?
One, sure.
But worse than the shark. The shark is just doing what comes naturally to it, right? It has no choice.
If you're a shark,
just like Quint, they just do what comes.
It has no choice in the matter of whether it's going to like.
That's what you do.
It sees food, it eats it, and that's it. Sure. Probably much worse than the shark is the mayor of the town, and
no small town politic bullshit.
Right, like you could say that, but like more so than that, it's just that douchebag, that fucking mayor. Like this is where I'll fight you on, or I'll battle against you on, like going more
abstract.
Yeah,
sure.
That's exactly what I was looking for. More abstract on this is like a good person. That was the mayor of that town would have been like, yeah, close the fucking beaches. What are you crazy? Like people are gonna die. Like there's certainly evidence to be had that will lead me to that conclusion. This guy was just an asshole and refused to acknowledge what was right in front of his face.
You've convinced me the mayor is the antagonist.
But the mayor is part of the antagonist. Because it reminds me actually quite a bit of what like a Stephen King would do for like the themes he goes into in his works. And the fact is,
I can see that
a lack of leadership. Every single person in this movie is significantly flawed, or at least significantly flawed to deal with this problem. Quint is selfish. He has a death wish. He has to be an alpha male. And will not accept that he made a mistake. You have Hooper, who has issues with like Quint specifically because he has alpha male characteristics as well.
Issues with authority, I would say.
Yeah, and
right?
like so, he's not willing to work. Like they don't work together. It's almost haphazardly how they work.
Yeah,
together.
I mean they're standoffish for sure. For most
at least until they have the
bonding scene.
Until they have the come to Jesus moment. Like,
but even after that, it's really they have a momentary like kind of truce to deal with this, but the shark like, in a sense breaks that quickly, or like, breaks them at least quickly. And Chief Brody, his lack of like he should have been the one to put into charge and say, like, look, Quint, do your job. Hooper, you stay on that side. But he doesn't. He never steps up to that role.
You're right about that, for sure.
And meanwhile, the ultimate alpha predator is out there killing people. The mayor, again, has... So it's all this lack of, like... people being in the wrong positions to handle what is necessary.
No, like, not... they're in the positions that they should be able to handle it, but they find that they're flaws within themselves.
Mhm.
But I'm going to say two things just real quickly. I mean, I'm going to give it a 1. I think it is sort of like both of those things that are very well portrayed in the film, but also, should you be afraid of a predator that has remained unchanged for thousands of years? Yes, you should, and that's the shark.
Millions.
Yeah, sure.
But
But also like the humanity's flaws, and like even you, like the mayor's like ostentatious as being like,
Right.
no, we're doing my like people are gonna die. No, because the beach, exactly.
Yeah.
Like
We need the beaches open.
exactly. Go
the
ahead,
funny
Chris.
thing is that Brody does try to take control. Like he brings in Hooper and he tries to do things. But first the mayor deballs him.
Mhm.
And then when he gets out in the water, it's
Deballs?
quint shit. Deballed.
Sure.
But,
I know what you
but
mean.
the thing
sure.
is, it's just like he's trying to, for the right, because it is his legal authority as the
Sure.
sheriff on his town. But for
But that
some
doesn't
reason,
matter out in the open sea.
Yeah, but also it doesn't matter in political bureaucracy either. So I mean, it's
No,
really
yeah, it's a good point.
I mean, because for me, and when I was talking about like when you think about like the themes or the antagonists, I was always thinking man versus nature. Because when you're camping or whatever, you're out in the woods, you're away from civilization. You realize man's part of nature, and that basically you're dealing with forces that you can't control.
Sure.
And you got to kind of be a part of it or freak out during it. And I was sitting there expecting to do that, which I already obviously apparently made an argument for.
Mm.
And, but I got so involved in like these characters' inner conflicts, which I think, we've touched on a political basis, on a personal basis. I mean, I'm definitely giving it a 1, but the themes are a lot more funny enough complex than I had thought going into this.
To strengthen these points we've been making, though, Chief Brody's an outsider still.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And at one point,
Someone
his
even
wife's on
says
the
like
beach,
you're not an islander
and
or
like,
whatever.
when do I become an islander? You never become an islander. You're never born here.
Yeah.
It's
so-
a conversation he overhears too, which is I think it makes it more effective. It's not like something that somebody told him,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? But he hears it, and this is what you hear. Like,
Oh,
that's
as
a
an
good
outsider,
point.
right?
Your authority is derived from being born there, not necessarily
Right.
your competency.
Yeah.
And even
exactly.
Hooper, wasn't born on the island, but he is a New Englander. So
Sure.
it's like that's another thing is he may be from the mainland, like a rich Bostonite or whatever, but at least he knows the waters, he knows the area, he knows the culture. So Brody,
He's a asshole.
yeah, and then Brody's from Manhattan, so he is in every way, shape, and form,
He's a marine muscle, if will. But sure.
an outsider.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with all that, and I think it's perhaps, as we just sort of laid out, perhaps more complex than it seems on the surface, but for that very reason, I think it deserves a pretty strong 1.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
give it a 1.
Okay, and on to protagonist with Scott.
All right, so I guess you guys actually tell me. I always counted the trio as protagonists. They're like, yes, even though Brody's introduced first, Hooper shows up pretty quickly. Like, collectively, all their skills are needed to solve the problem of the film.
Well, Quint shows up before Hooper.
That's true. He's in the town meeting.
Yeah,
That's true.
scratches the chalkboard.
No, he's there.
Y'all
and he
know
says,
me.
Y'all know
he's
me.
Like, oh, I've done jog for
He
you.
doesn't join the party until later.
Exactly. Like
Right.
they had to convince him to do it. So like because of the way we said
It's foreshadowing.
yeah, exactly. But because of what we said about how the intro body conclusion shakes down, then yeah, when they're all on the boat, that's basically like a large chunk of the movie, and it's them versus the shark. It's
Yes.
3 men versus nature. if you
Man
will.
v shark.
3 men and a shark, more or less. So I always counted them that, and like I said, and all the characters. Yeah, you like that?
Name my high school
It flew
band.
over your head, right? Anyways, and because of all the character flaws and so forth, like the interesting character development that unfolds throughout, they collectively equal the protagonist to me.
Yeah, I
And-
agree.
And all the actors, all of them did a great job. Always, they each sort of have a highlight scene. I would say here
Yeah.
and there, and even then, even just their general exchanges. So I don't have much more to say about it. I think it's a pretty solid 1. If you all agree that they collectively are it,
Yeah, I think we covered most of their flaws already. So.
Yeah, I don't. And the flaws
and their strength as well,
and their strengths
exactly.
But each
make
one of
them
them,
full characters. I really like all of them. I
Precisely.
don't have much more to say about it.
and
I'm
they
gonna
give
it
you,
one.
and the 3 of them give you a complete scope of the world and the peril and different
Exactly.
perspectives.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I agree. All 3 of them are the protagonists, and I give it a
And
very,
for
very
that
strong
reason-
1.
Mhm.
I will give it a 1.
Okay, on to supporting characters with me. I'm going to have to give Amity Island and its residents
Itself.
Ooh. It's our first.
Collective.
It's our first setting supporting
that's-
in a
that's not
in
true.
a while.
In a
Yeah.
while.
In a while, we haven't
Yeah.
done one in a while.
Because aside from the mayor, who is an embodiment of Amity Island. Like, you don't really get to know many of the characters. Yeah, you would have the wife and
I'd say
child.
you do and you don't.
Yeah. But I think that you get a real good sense of this community.
That's definitely
by
true.
all of this small supporting cast. People coming up to complain to the police chief at the beginning about
Which happens
small
constantly.
inconveniences.
Yeah.
The sheriff being not the
deputy guy.
being kind of a bumbling a Barney type character, and just overall, I think like it's a well-rounded world. If nothing particularly stands out besides the mayor,
I agree. Again, not much more. I think the point of viewing Amity itself as a character, as secondary, I think is quite good, and I agree. You do get a nice sense of the slice of life and all like their bullshit white like first world problems, if you will.
Yeah.
if not shark.
Because even like the, I guess they're not technically extras if they have a speaking point, but even like the extras, the ones that don't have any featured lines.
Like the grieving mother. Like is
with
Or like the kid from the beginning.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, even if they have the speaking lines, they do a really good job of establishing, and like anybody who does have a speaking line, gives you a little bit of a flavor. Like that woman who said, "You can't be an islander; you have to be born here."
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of gave you.
It all adds a lot,
right? It's a world building. She was just kind of like your average, but she provided enough,
Yeah, like the shark mercenaries, when you're introduced to them, you're like, you immediately, just by looking at them, you're like, these people aren't solving the problem.
Yeah, they're actually increasing the problem. They're only increasing the likelihood of something going wrong.
A shark attack?
Yes, exactly.
And Mrs. Kittner is, mean, I know she was a librarian. She wasn't really an actress or anything, but she did a really good job.
And all that, all that I think stands as the reason we should give secondary a 1. I think
I'm giving it a 1.
We are.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
indeed.
Yeah. And Chris, it's on to dialogue with you.
Oh, geez.
I'm Chief.
Y'all know me. As I want to say, like for dialogue, it doesn't really have to have any soliloquies or, just quotable lines. It's got the natural dialogue has to be, doesn't sound scripted.
Mm.
And not only do we get that, we get the soliloquy, we get some great lines. I mean, I don't think, aside from maybe that scene you were talking about with the roast in the dock, there's not a wasted word in this entire film. Because
but even that dialogue was fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's fine. I'm just saying in a scene that really is, if there's one scene that didn't need to be here, but everything else, like we were talking about the supporting characters, all the little textures that they add, even if they have a line or two, is perfect.
You just made me think of something. Given what you just said about giving Amity itself, that means now I am convinced that scene should be in there because that adds to the slice of life in the town. 2 yokels are like, "We're gonna catch this shark, right? And
steal my wife's roast."
Okay,
I got my wife's turkey.
Strangely reminded me of the first scene from the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie. I don't know if you guys remember that.
No. I remember it.
I do not remember it. But all I'm saying is like I'm just thinking like now that I think about it, and now that you just like brought that up, like what we just said, like it adds a lot to it because like 2 like idiot friends are like, we're gonna catch a shark ourselves, and they get totally fucked over.
Okay, you convinced me to keep it in the movie, Scott. Seriously.
Don't take that scene out of the movie.
No, do not.
I
do not
retract
take that
my
scene.
Leave it.
Yeah.
All right,
leave the scene.
Go on about dialogue though.
No, I'm just saying I don't think there was a wasted. Now that we put that scene back in the movie, I don't really think that. I don't think.
I'm sure Steven Spielberg is thanking us right now.
Yeah.
Let's get him on the horn and see if he
In case
thanks
you were
us.
wondering, it stands. It's fine. Go on.
I really don't think there was a wasted line in this movie. Because we all know about there's certain things like you need a bigger boat.
So many lines, yes.
Improvised.
You need a bigger what?
You need a bigger boat.
I thought you said birthday.
No.
I'm gonna need a bigger birthday.
Maybe you do.
I feel like my birthdays aren't big enough.
Anyways, anything else about dialogue?
No, I think the dialogue's perfect. I'm giving it a 1.
Yeah.
All right.
Indianapolis speech that would already get a 1 automatically.
Exactly.
And like you said, everything else feels super organic, like very natural. It flows. I believe that these are the things characters would be saying to each other, and their motivations also follow through. So
you just said exactly what I was going to say. That Indianapolis speech just gives the movie a 1 for dialogue.
Right. It's like automatic.
Straight off.
Yeah.
But really bigger than that. Anytime Quint speaks is like
also a highlight.
I think this has a lot to do with the acting, really. But it's just like this is just brilliant dialogue anytime that he speaks, and everybody else was also very good. Like, normally I would say everybody else was fine. That's not what I will say for this movie. Everybody else was
They're better
very
than
good.
fine, right?
Yeah, everybody else was very good.
Exactly.
All the dialogue in this movie, I think, was pretty good to incredibly good.
All right.
We'll say that was the entire, that was the line the movie walked the entire
I agree.
time.
What?
And any linguistics fans out there, they actually make a couple of references to the difference in accents through this.
Yeah, they do.
That's right.
And-
Comment upon it here and there. Yeah,
I
Well,
mean-
it's very, very obviously brought up right in the beginning.
Yes.
Yep.
When she says, you have to say what does he say? The ka?
the car, the fa, the thing. Yeah, sure.
The odd and
Park the
So-
yacht, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's very interesting stuff to people who like are interested in accents and
Yeah.
dialects and and the social differences between people who have that. And I think that, I mean, granted, yeah, it seems like a throwaway lines here and there, but I think to the themes I brought up, it's another example of that. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It's all involved in that, and I definitely agree.
so Steve-O, smile, you son of a, do the style. Or style, you son of a bitch.
Style, you son of a bitch.
Better, I like it.
Style, you son of a bitch.
Go ahead, sir. Just got.
Sounds like Chris is laughing 100 miles away
We're on the ocean
in a box right now.
Sound travel.
So, the style of this movie is accidentally amazing.
Awesome. Yes.
In the fact that that Spielberg wanted to show a lot more shark, but there were problems with the animatronic
before you go on,
shark.
like, if anyone knows like the nature, like the background, like the history of the filming of Jaws was plagued by many things, so they had to work around a lot. So you're going to speak to that, but if no one knew that, this is
Right.
make sure that is
So there were a lot of
a
problems with
facet
the
of the
animatronic
film.
shark that they were working with.
right.
It was on a
And-
makeshift dolly.
Sure.
There you go. It was on a makeshift dolly.
Other
So now you know.
problems, too.
Now you
Go
know all of the things.
Go on.
But no, like it's showing the shark less was, despite the fact that a 26-year-old Steven Spielberg wanted to show a lot more shark. I'm glad that the world decided to tell him to fuck off and
To show less shark.
show less shark, because that is what really raised the tension in this movie. If there was more shark shown, which is a fun thing to say, I suggest you all try it. If there was more shark shown, then it would have
Decreased.
kind of it would have kind of cut the tension
Exactly.
more than it should have been.
But should
Like,
there have been a tornado of sharks in it?
No.
listen, not in this movie, because you got to start somewhere, right? I think in the seventh Jaws movie, Sharknado, they actually did have that, if I recall correctly. But no, like it this movie was paced nearly perfectly, which I think I said earlier.
I will agree. Yes.
The acting was incredible, and I think I
There were some excellent
4
shots,
or
too, you're gonna
5
say.
times throughout the movie just said out loud, "Wow, that's a great shot."
You did. You did.
You know?
Even though, like I said, even though we're so familiar with it, it's still, you can be like, wow, what an awesome shot. Like, that's a genius move to shoot it this way.
And I'm sorry I'm not really leaving you guys a ton. I'm going over all of the things, but John Williams did
Are you
the
getting to
soundtrack.
the...
Motherfucker.
John Williams did the soundtrack, so I'll leave you most of it, but John Williams did the soundtrack, and it's one of his better ones.
No, well, what makes it is because you can't see the shark and you're only seeing the vision. It's and I wrote about this in my blog.
Check out Chris's article.
Read Chris's blog.
Is that
Go.
the
Go now.
go now? It's the Star Trek.
Yes.
blog. But anyway, no. But in all seriousness, part of what makes the not seeing the shark work is the theme, like the dun
Yes.
dun.
One of the most famous themes ever now.
Well, yeah, but
given
it's
that.
but even just being able to manipulate that to give you an
Sure.
idea of where the shark was is like fucking brilliant. And then at times where he introduces Farewell and Adieu into the score and all these little things, you know, it really just kind of picks things out of the ether that were already included in the movie, in addition to just having the shark's theme being an indicator as to where narratively and geographically where the shark was. I mean, so yeah, I thank you for handing the ball to me, but this score is just amazing.
Well,
you know.
Chris, I whenever you're not on, I'm usually the one that brings up the
I was waiting
soundtrack.
for you to bring it up, for
But
sure.
as soon as I started talking about it, I realized that I knew you were definitely going to talk about it.
No. I mean, I agree. I mean, you bring it up, I bring it up, so I don't ever want to take it away from you. But I'm like,
Well, you guys said it all.
Chris makes most of the. By the way, viewers, Chris makes most of the incredible music that we have on this show. So
Thank you, Steve.
That's the music shout out.
He's our John Williams.
Go on,
I
Scott.
suppose. I mean, I don't think say because you guys covered it all, and pretty much what I would have said if I was speaking. That style, instant one. Pretty much.
Yeah,
I can't add
it's
anything.
Well, I'm just going to quote a great musical source, Epic Rap Battles of History here. Half of your billions should go to John Williams.
And this is why.
This is one of the reasons.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, for sure.
No, I agree.
ones all around?
So ones,
Yep.
ones, and ones. Ooh, I'm gonna have to ask a question at the end of
All
this.
right. Yes, I know.
All right, on to a recommendation with Scott.
Yes, see Jaws. If you haven't seen it, I don't know who on earth has not seen Jaws. Really, I don't know. But and if you haven't seen it in a while, watch it again. It's still and it's still the example of blockbuster itself. The term comes from this movie.
Mm.
It still stands. It's still great. It's still enjoyable to watch. We had so much fun watching it just now, and it's still a great, effective movie. Like, and on all fronts, really.
And actually, there's a lot of interesting history with how this movie changed film.
Exactly. And its impact is huge.
It created the idea of the summer blockbuster.
Exactly.
So every Marvel movie or DC movie.
oh my God, we
less
can blame
DC.
the Transformers on this.
Yeah.
This movie gets his. I don't recommend this movie at all.
You can both blame and praise. Like, listen, you can't fault the originator for other things that came
Yeah.
after and aped
Yeah.
it badly.
Yeah.
It's just that this one set the template, set the bar, and it still stands. It still earns its place, rightly so.
I agree.
I completely agree with that. I think that there is no better shark movie ever made.
Sure.
And often we get to the recommendation and like, you can watch better of these movies, and whatever.
Within the range of shark movies.
If you're going to watch a shark movie, this is
I
the best
know.
one.
Deep Blue Sea, Samuel Jackson getting eaten by a shark.
I hated that movie so much. I wanted to take it back
All
to
right,
the. I
well,
wanted to take the tape
that
back to the
movie-
video
the
store and
point is-
ask for my refund for my $3.
Good story. The point is that she does not exist without Jaws.
Yeah, no, I was being facetious.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's
Sharknado doesn't exist without Jaws.
Nothing else does. Anyway, I'm giving it a 1. Recommend Jaws. See, I think actually my final thought is the theater we go to see movies generally near us is showing Jaws as like their summer
Oh
movie.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
Yeah, if you have never seen Jaws, you shouldn't have gotten this far without watching it. But if you have, and we've ruined the entire movie for you, go watch it anyway because it'll still be good.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's more.
Even we can't ruin
yeah,
Jaws.
yeah, exactly.
We've all seen it, a lot of times, and we're still pulling out things that are new.
Mhm.
And like to the summer blockbuster thing, when I was a kid back in the dawn of times when the shit was out,
Mhm.
before they were releasing like 15 movies a week, where every other movie is
Sure.
a tentpole film. I mean, it was just amazing to see something like Jaws or Star Wars or Close Encounters in the theaters for over a year, and. Seriously, and
Chris actually saw Jurassic Park in the theaters, but like,
I hate Jurassic Park.
All right.
but like
anyway,
actual
regardless-
dinosaurs.
No, but my whole point is, I saw this when in 75 and 76 in the theater. Is my whole point is like
Sure.
this thing when you're talking about blockbusters, just to give you an idea, it was in the movie theaters for
Forever.
over a year. Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, so I'm with I'm definitely giving it 1. It's just
Tough scores.
Yeah, tough.
yeah. What is it? A
perfect Jaws 10?
9.3333.
No,
huge
10.0.
Yeah.
And that being said, I'm sorry to take your job, Ian,
No, that's
and
cool.
and announce the 10 early. But
Fuck off.
I have a question to ask all of you.
Yes. I know what you're going to ask, and I say yes. Go.
Would you give this movie a 10? If just asked on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give this movie?
Okay, here's the interesting thing about this, is that I have more of appreciation watching this movie again than I had upon
Previously.
retrospect.
Yeah.
This is a smarter movie than I would if you had. I haven't seen this movie in like half a decade or so.
Right.
Like it's like, oh, it's a shark movie. It's a monster, like basically a real life monster thing. But no, it's a smarter movie than I
It's
thought.
way
it
more
was.
nuanced than that.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance, and like yes, it deserves all the the praise it gets.
I agree.
You
Yes,
say yes.
I think it is a perfect 10 movie. I would give it a 10. Like I said, the only hurdle I had, you guys convinced me that indeed that the barrier in my mind does not exist. There is nothing wrong with this movie, and in fact, it is perfectly done on all fronts for what it is, and given its influence.
For your mind, Scott. I if I may, I almost completely agree with you, Ian. I was actually going to say something very similar, where
Got more out of it.
if I hadn't
thought?
watched this tonight, I would probably say no.
Mhm.
I probably would still give it a 10 on the scale, but I'd probably say no. I don't know if it's a 10 movie.
Yeah, 8 or 9 or something
But
like that.
having watched
Given
it
that,
tonight
yeah.
and having watched it again, I think that I do think that it's a 10 movie.
Mhm.
I agree with Ian. I'm with everybody because it is a much more nuanced. It's
Fuck
a
you, man.
Fuck you.
Ian.
It's a. You know,
Anyway.
I
I'm
mean,
just kidding. I'm
it's
sorry.
built on his argument. You don't take credit for it. Anyway.
Don't call me the mayor for Mott's. Go on.
No, I mean, it is a much smarter movie than you think about because this is definitely one of those movies like The Godfather, whatever. If it's on TV, I'll sit there and start watching it.
Mhm.
And the reason I give you like the historic perspective, aside from just the general trivia, is that as you get older and you understand narrative better and you see everything that's born from this to whatever, 42 years later, still find things that are new in it, things that are nuanced, like how much of a character piece this really is.
Sure.
I mean, I would have maybe given a 9 before tonight, but like watching it in its entirety for the first time in like a decade, I without question, this movie is just, it's definitely one of those things you can watch and rewatch and you always will get something new out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess to close it out, I'm Jonathan Niemanzer here with Chris Morgan,
Here's to swimming with bow-legged women.
Stephen Ramosi,
I don't remember the lyrics, but the song about Spanish ladies.
and Scott Thurlow.
I'll say them too. Farewell and adieu to all these Spanish ladies. See you next time.
Show me the way to go home.
Good night.
I'm so tired.
We hope you've enjoyed your stay.
Masterpiece Theatre.
Join us again next time, won't you?
Masterpiece Theatre.
Editing and engineering by Jonathan Ian Manser. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.
Masterpiece